And I don't think he's genuinely enjoyed it. He's done the job to earn money, to make a living, and he knows a lot through it. I think he enjoys the job satisfaction of it when the car's finished and done.
In a surprising turn, a Saudi prince has reportedly doubled his offer to Mat Armstrong, reaching an astonishing $50 million and leaving the automotive world questioning why. Known for rebuilding damaged supercars and tackling seemingly impossible projects, Armstrong has earned an extraordinary reputation. But what could justify such a massive offer? What does the prince actually want him to do? And why does Bugatti suddenly seem unable to compete? The answers could reveal an opportunity far bigger than anything Armstrong has attempted before. An offer to an extraordinary genius. What began as an astonishing $20 million proposition has reportedly doubled to an unbelievable $50 million, a figure so enormous that it immediately raises questions about what is really behind the deal. This goes far beyond buying a single expensive car. The interest appears to involve an entire collection of damaged hypercars, each worth millions, sitting idle and waiting for someone with the skill, patience, and courage to restore these extraordinary machines and make them roar again. But why, Matt? After all, there are countless mechanics, engineers, and specialists capable of working on high-performance cars. Why would a Saudi prince reportedly be willing to spend $50 million on a YouTuber known for rebuilding wrecked vehicles? The answer may be found in what Matt has already managed to accomplish. He has built a reputation for looking at cars that seem finished and finding a way forward. More importantly, he does it in front of an enormous audience. Every difficult repair becomes a story. Every setback becomes part of the journey. And every successful engine start becomes a moment thousands or even millions of people want to see. That changes the value of what Matt brings to the table. The reported offer could be about far more than his ability to turn a damaged car into a working machine. It could represent the value of his experience, creativity, reputation, problem-solving skills, and the huge community that follows his work. And there is another fascinating detail that makes this reported offer even more interesting. The connection between Saudi royalty and extraordinary Bugatti cars is not entirely new. Once that piece of the puzzle comes into focus, the $50 million figure starts to look less like a random offer and much more like part of a story that has been building for years. Beyond the Saudi prince doubling his offer to Mat Armstrong to repair these machines, what relationship exists between the Saudi royal family and Bugatti? And why is Mat Armstrong being considered for such a mouth-watering offer at the expense of Bugatti? Let's uncover the interesting details. Saudi royalty's historic connection to Bugatti. Long before Mat Armstrong reportedly became the target of a staggering $50 million offer, Saudi royalty had already developed a remarkable connection with some of Bugatti's rarest and most spectacular creations. Prince Badr bin Saud was associated with the first completed Bugatti Chiron, as well as the extraordinary one-off Bugatti Vision Gran Turismo. That connection is important because these were never ordinary luxury cars. They represented the end of automotive engineering, where breathtaking performance, rarity, advanced technology, and enormous prices came together in a way very few people could experience. The Chiron itself marked a major new chapter for Bugatti. It was built for a tiny circle of collectors who wanted something far beyond an expensive supercar. Then there was the Vision Gran Turismo, an even more unusual machine created to showcase what Bugatti could imagine for the future. Saudi royalty has long shown an extraordinary interest in some of Bugatti's rarest and most impressive machines. But the reported offer to Mat Armstrong changes the story completely, because this time, the attention may not be focused on the car itself, but on the man capable of bringing damaged hypercars back to life. This time, the focus may not be on acquiring another extraordinary machine. It may be on finding the rare person with the skill, courage, and vision to bring these incredible cars back from the dead. That is where Matt becomes particularly interesting. His reputation has been built around taking cars that appear finished and refusing to accept that they are beyond saving. Instead of simply looking at the damage and walking away, he looks for another route, even when the obvious solution seems too expensive, too complicated, or simply impossible. And that ability could be exactly what makes him so valuable to someone sitting on a collection of damaged hypercars. Since Saudi royalty already has a history with some of Bugatti's most extraordinary machines, why is Mat Armstrong now the person being trusted to bring some of those incredible cars back to life? And what incredible achievement put him in the spotlight ahead of Bugatti's manufacturer? Let's unravel the details. The multi-million-dollar Bugatti that was written off. The wrecked Bugatti Chiron Pure Sport, owned by Alex Gonzalez, became the perfect test of whether Mat Armstrong could really do what his reputation suggested. One of only 60 ever built, the rare hypercar suffered a devastating crash in Miami. The front end was crushed, the airbags exploded, the carbon fiber bodywork was badly damaged, and the impact reached deep into the car's mechanical and structural systems. The damage underneath was even more worrying. The gearbox housing had shattered. The enormous engine had been pushed forward. Coolant lines were crushed, and the carbon fiber monocoque, the central structure that holds the entire car together, had taken a serious hit. Insurance eventually declared the Chiron a total loss. A Bugatti technician reportedly inspected the wreck, and the car was given a salvage title. For most owners, that would have been the moment to walk away. But Alex Gonzalez saw something different. He reportedly bought the wreck back from auction for close to $2 million, even though an undamaged Chiron Pure Sport could be worth several $1 million. It was an enormous gamble, but Alex clearly believed the car still had a future. Then he contacted Mat Armstrong. Mat had spent years building his reputation by taking damaged cars that appeared hopeless and finding ways to bring them back. But this project was on an entirely different level. This wasn't simply an expensive Lamborghini or Rolls-Royce sitting in a workshop. It was one of the rarest Bugattis ever made. And there was another problem waiting for him: Bugatti itself. As Mat began looking into what it would take to rebuild the Chiron, he discovered that getting the car back on the road would involve far more than repairing damaged metal and carbon fiber. The manufacturer had its own position on the wreck, and once Mat came up against that position, this extraordinary rebuild became a much bigger battle than anyone had expected. Mat might have caught the attention of the Saudi prince with his attempt to rebuild the Chiron Pure Sport without the manufacturer's support. But to what extent was his effort frustrated? And how much did Bugatti undermine his bold approach? Let's uncover the details. Bugatti cuts off Mat's Chiron rebuild. Once Mat Armstrong began searching for replacement parts, the Chiron rebuild hit an obstacle that could have ended the entire project. Bugatti had reportedly flagged the car's VIN, meaning authorized dealers would not simply provide replacement components for the damaged hypercar. This was far more serious than having trouble finding rare parts. The car had effectively been cut off from the company that built it. Bugatti's position was largely based on safety. The Chiron Pure Sport is an extremely complex machine, and the company maintained that major structural repairs needed to be handled by specialists with the right equipment, training, and experience. Then, the situation became even more unusual. Bugatti CEO Mat Armstrong entered the public conversation, addressing the controversy and stressing that the safest option was to return the car to Bugatti's official facility. The proposed factory repair was also not cheap. The initial figure reportedly reached close to $2 million, before a much lower figure was later discussed. But Alex Gonzalez rejected that route, and Mat Armstrong was not prepared to simply walk away. Instead, Bugatti's resistance seemed to make the challenge even more compelling. Every obstacle created another problem to solve. Every part Mat could not buy forced him to consider whether he could somehow create, repair, or source it another way. That completely changed the nature of the project. This was no longer just about rebuilding a wrecked Bugatti. Mat was now attempting to prove that there could be another way to bring an extraordinary hypercar back to life without relying entirely on the manufacturer. And that decision would push Mat and his team into territory they had never experienced before. Because the next challenge was not about finding a replacement part, it was about figuring out whether they could actually take the Chiron apart, repair its most critical structures, and put it back together themselves. And what happened next became one of the most unbelievable moments of the entire rebuild. Since Bugatti locked the VIN of the machine Mat intended to rebuild and publicly talked down his effort, did that discourage Mat from going further? Or did he push ahead and prove the manufacturer wrong? Let's find out. The building of the impossible. With official Bugatti parts out of reach, Mat Armstrong and his team were forced to think far beyond the usual repair process. Instead of waiting for the manufacturer to provide everything they needed, they began creating their own solutions. They fabricated custom radiators, built an exhaust from scratch, rebuilt the crash bar, and found unconventional ways to replace components that would normally come directly from Bugatti. Even the airbags became part of the controversy when Audi A3 units were reportedly incorporated into the rebuild. But all of those challenges were nothing compared with what came next: the transmission. Bugatti had indicated that separating the Chiron's structure required specialist facilities and equipment that very few places in the world possessed. For Mat, that could have been the point where the project finally stopped. Instead, he and his father came up with another plan. Using a two-post lift, a rolling platform, and materials that looked completely out of place beside a multi-million-dollar hypercar, they managed to separate the Chiron. And once the car was finally opened up, the true extent of the crash became much clearer. The damage was severe, but there was one discovery that changed everything. The engine had survived. The heart of the 1,500 horsepower machine was still intact. The transmission could also be separated, meaning the project still had a realistic path forward. A damaged gearbox mount was repaired, the two sections of the car were eventually brought back together, and months of painstaking work began moving toward its biggest test. Then came March 2026. Mat and his team pressed the button. The Chiron fired up. A car that had been declared a total loss was suddenly alive again. And that moment changed the entire story. Mat wasn't simply repairing a wreck anymore. He had shown what could happen when the official route was closed, and the only option left was to find a way yourself. Mat worked on the Bugatti against all odds, and eventually the engine started working again. But what ridiculous amount was spent on getting the hypercar running again? And could this remarkable effort be the reason the Saudi prince wants to give Mat a fortune to repair his machines? Let's uncover the astonishing details. Turning the wreck into a one-off. Getting the Chiron running again should have been the moment the controversy finally settled. Instead, Mat Armstrong made another decision that divided the automotive world all over again. He fitted the rebuilt Chiron with a $700,000 Venuum wide-body kit, transforming the appearance of a car that was already one of the rarest Bugattis on the planet. And almost immediately, people took sides. Some viewers saw the modification as a bold masterpiece. They argued that Mat had taken a badly damaged hypercar and given it an identity that could never be duplicated. Others saw it very differently. This was a Bugatti Chiron Pur Sport, with only 60 examples ever produced. To them, changing such a rare machine was almost unthinkable. Why take one of the most exclusive cars in the world and replace its original design with something completely different? But there was another side to the argument. This Chiron had already been declared a total loss. It had suffered major structural damage, received a salvage title, and been cut off from Bugatti's normal parts network. It was never simply going to return to the showroom as another untouched Pur Sport. So Mat did something that made the car his own. Rather than hiding the crash, he embraced the Chiron's transformation. The wide-body conversion turned the damaged factory hypercar into something no other Pur Sport could claim. A truly unique creation. It was no longer simply one of 60. It had become a one-of-a-kind machine, potentially catching the attention of someone extraordinarily wealthy, because the reported Saudi interest wasn't necessarily about buying another rare Bugatti. It was about the man who had shown that even the most damaged and complicated cars could be given another chance. With the Saudi prince offering Mat Armstrong such an enormous amount to repair some incredible machines, could Mat really turn down a once-in-a-lifetime offer? Or are there some things that could make accepting it difficult? If so, what are they? And how important are they? Let's dive into the complicated details. The offer with a hidden price. At first, $50 million sounds like the kind of offer almost anyone would accept without a second thought. But for Mat Armstrong, the decision may not be that simple. His greatest asset might not be his ability to repair damaged supercars. It could be something much harder to replace: the community he has built around his work. Millions of viewers have followed Mat through difficult repairs, unexpected mistakes, expensive setbacks, and those incredible moments when a car everyone thought was finished suddenly comes back to life. During the Chiron rebuild, that relationship became even more obvious. Viewers were paying such close attention that they reportedly spotted a possible hairline crack that Mat and his team had missed. That changes the meaning of the audience. They aren't simply watching Mat work. They are part of the experience. Now imagine what happens if Mat accepts a huge private contract and disappears into a heavily secured warehouse in Dubai for years. What happens to the videos? What happens to the freedom to show every mistake, every setback, and every discovery? Would viewers still get to follow the rebuilds as they happen? Or would everything become controlled behind closed doors? Mat could walk away with $50 million and an incredible collection of completed projects, yet potentially lose the very environment that helped make him valuable enough to receive such an offer in the first place. And that creates the biggest dilemma of all. Is the Saudi prince really paying for Mat Armstrong's mechanical talent? Or is he trying to secure the entire Mat Armstrong experience? Because those are two completely different things. One can be hired, the other has taken years to build. And whichever choice Mat makes could shape not only his bank account, but the future of his channel, his team, and the community that made his rise possible. Mat needs to consider many things before accepting the multi-million-dollar offer. But could Bugatti become an obstacle to the deal? And could the million-dollar offer actually become a bigger problem for Bugatti than the Chiron rebuild? Let's dive into the complicated details. A much bigger battle than anyone expected. Bugatti is entering a new chapter with the Tourbillon, while the Chiron now represents the closing of one of the most remarkable eras in the company's modern history. But even as Bugatti moves forward, the Chiron rebuild keeps dragging the company back into an uncomfortable conversation. The damaged poor sport was considered a serious problem. Bugatti maintained that major repairs needed the right specialists, equipment, and factory-level expertise. Mat Armstrong, however, found another route. He and his team took the car apart, repaired damaged components, fabricated parts, and eventually brought the engine back to life. And that should have been the end of the story. It wasn't. The rebuild became an enormous online spectacle. Millions of people watched Mat challenge one of the world's most exclusive car manufacturers, while the damaged Chiron slowly transformed from a total loss into a running, highly modified machine. Then something even more unexpected entered the picture: Saudi interest. A reported offer of $20 million began circulating, followed by claims that the figure had eventually climbed to an astonishing $50 million. Suddenly, the story wasn't only about one wrecked Bugatti anymore. It became a question of value. Bugatti can control its parts. It can restrict access to factory support. It can protect its brand and decide how its cars should be repaired. But there is one thing it cannot control: the audience. Every time Mat posts another update, the story reaches millions of people who now know that a damaged Chiron was brought back to life outside Bugatti's official repair system. And Bugatti cannot stop a wealthy collector from looking at that achievement and deciding that Mat's ability to resurrect extraordinary cars is worth tens of millions of dollars. That creates a strange situation. The company built the machine. Matt built the story around bringing it back. And now, the person who created that story may reportedly have an offer large enough to change his entire career. So perhaps the biggest question isn't whether Matt can rebuild another Bugatti. It's whether $50 million is enough to convince the man who built his reputation as an underdog to leave the garage, the cameras, and the community that made him famous. Because whatever Matt decides, this story may be nowhere near its final chapter. So, what do you think about the prince's offer to Matt? Should he accept it? Or could accepting it damage his reputation? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.